Call meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, December 13th, 2019 at 9 a.m. to Community Center, 3500 Edgewater Drive, Sebring, Florida. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. This is a special meeting for the discussion of the foreclosure of the DFC Loan Funding Company, LLC properties.
Okay, Supervisors, so tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, the auction will take place, and what we're looking for today from the board is a threshold where we stop bidding if there are in fact other bidders. If there are no other bidders, basically the plaintiff starts off with a $100 bid. Bids are done in increments of $100. So if there's no other bidders, I'll bid $100, and that will be the end of it. If there are other bidders, there can be back and forth, and the district has a bid up to $2.7 million for a plaintiff's bid, where we would not have to, fork out any cash. If we go above that $2.7 million, we would have to pay anything above that, what we have as a plaintiff's bid. I don't foresee that happening, but the appraisal done by Mr. Boyd says that approximately, or a potential value up to $3.8 million. If it was all of that land in that area, but we're not doing all of that land. So basically, what I'm looking for today is a dollar threshold, where if we reach that dollar threshold, I stop bidding, and B, permission to disclose to any other potential bidders what our threshold is. That may, because what we don't want to happen is to get, if there's another bidder that's interested, and they don't know how high we're going to go, they may bid, let's say they bid up to $1 million, and our threshold is $1.5 million. Well, if they know our threshold is $1.5 million, they won't bid at all. Hopefully they would not bid at all, because if we have to bid $1 million, we don't have there's no clerk's processing fee that we have to pay, because there's no cash changing hands, but we do have to pay documentary stamps. And doc stamps on what will end up being a certificate of title is 7 cents per $100. And so that could be, if we have $1 million bid, that's a pretty hefty chunk of change, $70,000 if I calculated correctly. So what I would like to do is A, today get a number where we stop, and B, permission to notify any other potential bidders that this is how high the district's going to go. If you're not planning on going that high, please don't bid. Does that make sense?
Are we expecting anybody to bid? Do we think? We have no clue, right?
Don't know.
Do we know anything about Tanglewood or their interest level?
I haven't heard back from Tanglewood, so I could reach out to them again today, but at this point, nothing.
Mm-hmm. And what was the financial? Run me through that. If somebody actually came to do a bid tomorrow, they had to bring how much money with them?
They have to, after the conclusion of the bid, you have to pay 5% down immediately, and then you have to pay the remaining 95% by 4 p.m. that day, the same day.
So if it's $2 million, they got to have $2 million
exactly
by tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Correct. So I mean, in my opinion, unless there's just someone out there that we're completely unaware of, we're not really expecting bidders, because I don't know of anybody, locally that has that kind of cash to just, throw around.
It was just that one advertisement that you sent me. That was all that's been advertised.
Correct. Yes.
So really, if you missed that, you got no clue.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't expect from the start that we'd have a bidder. I really didn't, because it's way too much money for them to just the amount of time that we've given anybody to come in and do it and do that. Now I could see them negotiating with us afterwards, once we get control of it, because then we have flexibility to give it at our price. But so I would be very surprised if anybody bids. So That's just my opinion, but I
would
can't
agree.
see it happening.
So the question is, how much do we want to pay for the title certificate, that's...
Well, hopefully it is going to be, it's going to be a $100 plaintiff's bid, and that'll be the end of it, but just in case, what I want to know from the board is, let's say that there is some, developer that saw the advertisement and is going and shows up. I need to know at what point I stop bidding. If they, if I tell them, we're going to go up to, and if you give me permission, I'll tell them, look, we're going to go up to $1.5 million, if that's the number you guys pick. And they may go, okay, great. Then they know that they bid $1,500,100, and they'll get it for that amount because we've told them, the direction of the board would be to stop at $1.5 million. So that's basically what the question is in case there is another bidder there, what is the minimum amount of money that the district is willing to take for this land?
What's the basis for the 2.7 million threshold?
The 2.7 is what we actually foreclosed. That was the total of outstanding district assessments plus the foreclosure cost, all the costs of doing the foreclosure. So the judgment amount is just over $2.7 million.
Okay, and they're going to pay if there's a bidder, they're going to pay the money to the county.
Correct. They will pay the money to the court, and then we will demand that disbursement.
And is there any risk that the court's going to withhold the $600,000 in taxes due?
If the county could make a demand for it, and that may take some arguing. We did not include them in the suit because we knew obviously we can't foreclose taxes.
Right.
So our position would be that they're taking it subject to those taxes because those taxes are still on the books, and they would understand that. So
if we end up with the property, which we probably will tomorrow night, do we owe that $648,000?
No.
Well, yes, technically we do, but
Technically.
yeah. The lien is there. Mm-hmm.
They're not going to collect it.
Huh?
They don't intend to try to collect it, right?
Correct. Not initially. A lot of it will depend on how long we hang on to it. I think if it goes beyond a year, we might start having some issues because beyond 5 years or potentially 7 years with tax certificates, the dollar amounts start to drop off, and I don't think that they're going to want to be in a position where they would be losing money if we. So realistically, we need to try and sell this in a 12-month period. in my opinion.
But if they want to turn around and say, you owe this money and we want it.
They can say that, but yeah, they can't foreclose it. The only process that they have is through the escheatment process. And based on the way the statutes works, the individual lots, there's over 1,500 individual lots out there. That's why it's never been done. That's why the county hasn't done anything in the past, is because it was too expensive for them to foreclose individual lots. They don't have the ability to foreclose the way we do. They can only issue tax certificates and do escheatment.
Just tell me, what are our risks on either way? Do we have any risk?
The only risk that I think that we have is, if we obtain the property, not being able to find a seller within a reasonable period of time, and then we have to start negotiating with the county to avoid them trying to come after the land for the taxes, selling tax certificates, doing all those, starting the escheatment process.
It's too costly.
Yeah, but it's too costly for them to do that, in our opinion.
But we could have a $650,000 risk, is what you're saying.
Potentially, yeah.
So does the county have a legal right to, I'm not sure how to verbalize this, but could we pay the taxes that were the oldest taxes go away at a certain point?
Correct.
Could we pay that increment? Would the county be allowed to permit that?
We could. And like I say, realistically, if it's something we wanted to do, we could pay all the taxes, and then when we sold the property, we would just recoup that cost. But in my opinion,
that, but to avoid having to put that $600,000 out there.
Yeah, we could do that as well. But like I say, in our opinion, it doesn't make financial sense for the county to come after and try to start taking, because their process for taking those lots through escheatment, they have to do it lot by lot.
Right.
So.
But
Even though we would own all the lots at that point?
Correct. That's statutorily driven.
let me ask
That's
you
my
that.
knowledge.
So assuming again that we have this property, it's ours now, what are our plans on getting rid of it? Or selling it? I mean, how, do we have any idea how we're gonna go about this yet?
Well, initially, Omar and I have talked. We want to advertise in publications for commercial properties for sale. And this is, we've also talked about Zillow and some other options to pay for. There's going to be some advertising costs initially. If we can gain some interest without hiring a realtor, I mean, that's those are the options that we do have to see what we can see if we have any interest out there.
So we're talking about commercial property, not
Yes.
residential?
Well, it's zoned, I believe, multifamily, which is an R3 zoning, but this development is going to be more of a commercial development in my mind. It could be a residential commercial or it could be commercial.
I mean, just trying to get ahead of ourselves. If it's commercial, does that put any of our existing residents in a unique situation? I don't know how to explain that. I mean, if somebody comes in and builds a warehouse, are we near residents that may not be happy about it? If it was commercial.
I don't know. I mean, that's...
I guess if they're towards the border.
Right now, it's a multifamily zoning. That's what it is now. But that's on a, the lots are 50 by 100. So...
Because I'm thinking commercial is probably the way to sell the property quicker than residential, the way things look, I would think.
Oh, I agree 100%, unless Hometown is interested. But again, Hometown, it was Graytech, I believe, before Hometown, and the plat that Tanglewood is existing on now was vacated. I believe that it was individual lots a long time ago, but there's only 2 straps, so it's not individual lot.
This is where all the pigs are, right? Huh?
Yep.
This is where the pigs are? We get rid of the pigs that way, right? We put a warehouse out there.
Give them to somebody.
So, I'm just assuming that with this price, that when we sell it, all we're going to be interested is they're going to have to pay the taxes, $600 and some thousand, and then whatever we have in it, we have a lot of flexibility then with any developer that we can do certain things and give them breaks on if they buy and sell it, because in my mind, in our interest is to sell it, to get it developed one way or the other, to do anything, not necessarily make $2-3 million when we sell it. Or is my thinking wrong there?
No, I think we have a lot more flexibility if this property becomes ours and we then market it. We have a lot more flexibility with what we can offer a potential developer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But what I'm saying is a developer could buy it though for $600 and some thousand worth of back taxes and whatever we want for what we've got invested in it.
yeah, when we resell it, the taxes will absolutely be paid at that point.
Yes, yeah, I knew that. So in the overview, that's probably basically what we should be deciding, in my mind, right, is what, for us to take control of it for sure, and then try to market it.
So if we stop bidding at $1.5 million,
I'm sorry?
if we were to stop bidding at $1.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
and he were to bid $1,100,000, he would pick up the $600,000 in tax liability.
Correct.
We would have somewhere around $100,000 in cost, because we'd have the $70,000 for the stamp plus the foreclosure cost. Is that true?
No, if we only pay documentary stamps if we're the successful bidder. The successful
Okay.
bidder is the one that has to pay the doc
So
stamp.
our only expense at that point is the $32,000 that we pay
Essentially.
your firm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if somebody bids it in at $1.5 million, we put $1.4 million plus into Kitty. Is that true?
Correct, yeah. Mhm. That money would be ours.
All right. That's
We
what I want.
may have a minor argument with the county, but I think that we would, hopefully with the county, with what they've told us so far, they would be going after the person that bought it for those taxes. They wouldn't try and take it out of the bid money.
Right, right.
And with y'all's approval, my intention is that before the bidding starts is to announce, this is how high we're going and this is what's owed in taxes. So that anybody that buys it knows, any potential bidder will know this is how high the district's going to go. And if they buy the property, if they decide they want to, bid higher than what we're willing to go, they are going to be responsible for that $600,000+ in taxes.
Okay, that's my understanding. So really what we have to decide is, what are we willing to settle for
Correct.
to our bottom line?
Correct.
And if that's $1.4 million, that's fine. If it's $2 million, then obviously the bid goes up.
From an accounting standpoint, are we showing the roughly $2.7 million as a receivable right now for old taxes? So if we said, okay, we'll let it go for $1 million, we're going to write off $1.7 million in assets from our P&L.
Yes.
Well, I believe so.
Yeah, but realistically, you're not going to sell it for...
So
Do you guys have a recommendation on what dollar amount we should set?
The higher we go, the more potential we may have to pay in dock stamps. That's really the only real concern. And if we go, and obviously if we go above the 2.7 plaintiff's bid, anything that we go above that, we'd have to pay that in cash. So Mr. Boyd's $3.8 million, appraisal is for the area of land, but not the exact amount. I think Mr. Hotelling did some calculations, and it comes out to about 2.77. Am I remembering that right?
If you use his value per acre, it comes out to about 2.7. I'd argue that anybody looking at it is going to have to deal with the other lots in there, so it's probably valued at less per acre. So probably a more reasonable market value for what's being foreclosed on is a couple million.
And didn't I read someplace it's 15, they recommend, or his thoughts, 15 to 20,000 per lot to develop it? So, you got to be realistic about what kind of price we put on it to try to get rid of it. I think, again, in my mind, it's getting somebody to develop it and not necessarily trying to make a whole bunch of money when we're trying to sell it. Because Sun and Lakes thing is for the future and the development of it. So, but when you have somebody wanting to come in and have a 15 to 20,000 per lot, and there's 1,500 lots, and you want $2 million for it, I think there should be some negotiation going on.
I agree.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the balancing act here is the ideal is to get it into somebody else's hands who's going to pay the taxes and pay the assessments on it. The other side of it is we're looking at writing off $1 million or more in accounts receivable. So it's, obviously we don't think accounts receivable are collectible anyway, or we wouldn't have foreclosed.
Right.
So
let's come up with a number, shall we? Do we need two numbers? One number on what we want to bid,
No, just one.
But eventually we have, let's assume that it's our property. Eventually we're going to try and sell it off. Do we want to decide what the minimum we would accept, or?
I don't know though. That's what we need to do today. Today we just need a number of where we stop bidding.
Okay, but eventually we're going to have to decide on a number.
Yeah.
If it's
Correct.
our property.
I think the negotiated price on a sale, if we end up with the property, is going to be higher than the number that we would say, hey, if they want to come up with the money today, take it.
I would think that was true too.
And my recommendation, again, because I think that the fair market value based on what I read in the report for what is actually being foreclosed on is probably closer to $2 million. If we said 50% of that value is a fair price for the auction, that's $1 million. I think if somebody wanted to pay $1.1 million, we'd be happy to put $1 million cash on the books instead of $2 million in receivable.
So you're saying $1.1 million is as high as we should go?
I'm saying $1 million is high. If somebody wants to go $1.1 million, they've got it.
I don't know. I think it's low. I mean, it's worth 3.8.
No, it's not. The entire unit's worth 3.8.
That's the 250-some acres rate. It's 180, something like that.
Well, if you all think 11 is the number, I'll go with you. I'm not that good on this stuff. I have to rely on you guys a little bit.
I personally would like to get it as low as we can. Because, again, my interest is in the future and in us getting it and negotiate. There might be a lot more negotiations going on if we have somebody interested in it. So I think the key right now is for us to get it if there's no bidder out there. So
There's no bidder out there. We got it, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's why, I mean, if 1 million or 1.1, I mean, I don't care, but there's certainly somebody wanted to pay $700,000 for it. I'd say go, because they got a lot invested.
Yeah,
in
and keep in mind, they're going to have to pay $700,000 on top of whatever the bid is.
Right, and that's what I meant. I mean, we're not dealing with people that don't know what they're doing. So, and with the development costs and the whole thing, they've got to know that. And so I go along with that, but I don't even, it doesn't, in my mind, have to be that high. But I'll go along with it.
So if it was $1 million, we still have to pay the $7, whatever it was, whatever you were talking about, the dock stamp.
If we bid.
No, because I'd say what the goal is, the goal is this. The goal is, if we get it, we only get it for 100. The goal is I will announce before the bidding starts, I will say, the district, I have been authorized to bid up to $1 million or whatever the number is for this property. So any other bidder knows that where we're stopping. And so they know, okay, because if they were coming in, they were prepared to pay $1.5 million.
Right,
well, now they're going to get it for $1 million.
If we stop at $1 million, our cost will be what? Do we have a cost?
If we get it at $1 million, let's say the goal is for us to not have to bid $1 million. But if we did, and we bid $1 million, we're going to have to pay $70,000 in documentary stamps. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 76. So that's our gamble, $70,000.
Well, again, if we bid up to $1 million and somebody didn't bid $1.1 million, we'd have to pay the $70,000.
Correct.
If they bid $1.1 million, we wouldn't have to pay anything tomorrow.
Correct.
Right.
I think $1.1 million makes sense in terms of, number one, getting this accomplished, if it can be done, and getting out as cleanly as possible. If there's two bidders, God bless them. So I would support $1.1 million as the minimum bid.
So why don't we just put on the table, do we have to vote on it? We have to vote on this, obviously. Let's put on the table a vote for $1 million. We'll see how we do.
Okay, so I heard Joe say 1.1, and you're saying 1, but I haven't heard a motion yet.
Yeah.
We need a motion.
Oh, Joe said 1.1?
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't make a motion, but somebody should, if you want to.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we set the maximum that we would bid at 1.1 million.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second.
Okay.
Any more board discussion?
Any more board discussion?
You have to have discussions out there, too?
Yeah, I understand that. Relax. All right, public comment.
Guys, come on, Costis, give us your opinion. Go for it. Later.
All right, Chrissy.
Supervisor Gilpin,
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Hotelli?
Yes.
President Branson?
Yes.
All right, so just to confirm that I will announce that, A, that we will go up to $1.1 million, and B, that anybody that is buying the property understands that they're buying it subject to the $680-something thousand in taxes, $648 in taxes.
Omar and I both are planning on being there tomorrow as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to try to come, but I got this.
Discussion to and from the board.
Yeah, is this different subjects now?
No, technically we can.
Okay, you can't?
No.
That's fine.
Okay, with that, meeting's adjourned. I'm sorry. Is there any public comment relevant to this issue?
Well, not yet, we're out of time.
We're adjourned.
You just gambled.
I'm just remembering all the stuff that we were